Ingram Smith, Bud Elliott, back again for another episode of the Nolecast. As always, we will thank our friends at Louisiana Hot Sauce. 3 simple ingredients, 1 fantastic product. I will say, for those of you out there that got a Kroger in the area, Kroger is the exclusive distributor of the Louisiana hot sauce that has been aged in a bourbon bottle or a bourbon barrel. And you pay an extra dollar or two for it, but I love it. I really do. I've got a bottle or two headed your way, Bud, for you to sample as well. So something to keep an eye on. And as always, tarpinsellers.com, 20% off with a coupon code Nolecast. Shout out to Jeremy Carter and the great people out there in Napa Valley making a wine that all of the Florida State family can be more than proud of. So, Bud, we've got some listener questions that stem from last week, and
I do have a suggestion
then we'll go through some prize
Louisiana
picks.
people.
Yeah.
Hot sauce aged in a Scotch barrel. We'll call it the
Scotch
Ingram edition.
barrel. We will call it the Ingram edition, and based off some of the text I got from that guy, that may be in play, Bud. So
Let's
see.
do it.
Absolutely, yes.
Awesome.
All right. So we'll start off with listener questions, like I said, end with some prize pick preview, and also incorporate a little bit of our idea as to what you can watch for this weekend as a Florida State fan. First question comes from Tucker. He asks, do you think anyone is overperforming and will regress to the mean? Are the improvements likely to stick? I'll circle back to one of the final comments that we made on the previous podcast. Florida State's not going to average 63% on 3rd and long or something like that. Like, that's not going to happen. That's the definition of not sustainable, but a great effort on Sunday that gave you a stat like that. Also, look, I think Jared Verse is going to play his way into being a big-time ball player. I think it'll take him a second to learn to play a little bit more with consistency, depending on some of the looks that he gets. But you got a really special player there. Now, is he going to be defensive lineman of the week every week? Yeah, probably not. Otherwise, he will be like a top 8 pick. But that kid's special, and you more than hit on that one out of the portal.
No doubt about it, man. I think you really nailed it there. Again, if you missed the last episode, go back and listen to it. I thought it was pretty fun. If FSU goes 63% success rate on 3rd down passing downs, that's 3rd and 5 plus, that would be the best in the history of football by a lot. So probably not going to sustain that. And people will try to block Jared Verse in different ways. Tucker, we really appreciate the question there. Those are the 2 areas that I think are probably going to be most exploited going forward. If I had to nominate some more, corner could be if Cooper doesn't get back into the form that you want him to, although you are playing some teams whose receivers are not that great coming up, and especially down the stretch potentially. And obviously O-line, they have to stay healthy because you are at sort of a critical level here. You just cannot go, like, there's a hard deck, and you cannot really go below the hard deck if you're not going to have a serious drop-off. They're already pretty fortunate that Turrentine, showed up in the shape that he did.
Tom was kind enough to do our ad read for us. 3-part question, like 3 simple ingredients in Louisiana hot sauce. Hats off to you, Tom. What's wrong with Gaynor, and how long is he out? I don't know an exact timeline here, Bud. I'm not trying to be
He was
crude.
on crutches on the broadcast.
I like the kid, hell of an athlete. I don't know how many football contributions he makes to you, to be perfectly honest with you. We'll see if he comes back and you can scheme him up in some ways. That'd be great, but I don't think he's an immediate thought at linebacker right now, regardless. So last year you talked a lot about Malik McClain, what has dulled his shine. Certainly some of the transfers that you brought in. I have asked about this, Tom, behind the scenes. I haven't gotten an answer like, oh, he's not practicing hard. Oh, he's not taking things seriously. I just don't know that the developmental track has been what we all thought it would be there. I still think that people are optimistic about Malik in the long term, still make some absurd catches in practice, but the level of consistency isn't, what people would hoped it would be. It's not a lost cause by any means. Still some optimism there as to what that kid turns into, but that's been a little bit of a question and mystery for me as well.
No doubt about it. Who's your biggest impact transfer so far? 3rd-part question from Tom.
Well, if it's in but a 1-year window, I'm going to go with number 5. If we're talking about it in general, one Mr. Travis Jordan.
That's a great answer, actually. Yeah. For this year, it's got to be Verse. The receivers, even though I don't think they're like, no doubt NFL types, are clearly an upgrade over what you had, right? And that was it. Granted, it's not that hard to upgrade the worst receiving core in the ACC, which I think you probably had last year. But Verse is the answer here. I mean, he changed the game for you. But Bethune ain't far behind.
Yeah, true. Absolutely. Got two real hits there. And finally, or no, that was all three of them. Appreciate your question there, Tom. Tucker asked Jordan Travis, dark horse Heisman candidate, or should I stop dreaming? Tucker, you should probably stop dreaming, but Travis was incredible. What I think Bud and I may need to reevaluate, if his level of play stays at all this, is that I don't think Jordan is necessarily like an NFL starter, but I think Jordan may have the ability to be an NFL player if he keeps making some of the plays and throws that he did. Again, the throw to Cam McDonald is bonkers how good of a throw that is. Some of the decisions he's making is that of a level of quarterback that when you pair with his athleticism, an NFL team may well take a flyer on. So if Jordan Travis is a dark horse Heisman candidate, Florida State's probably like 11-1 or something like that. And so I certainly hope you're right. I hope that's the case, but I'm not sure we're quite there yet.
Yeah, I mean, technically everybody's a dark horse candidate in some ways. So here's a better question: does he have a legitimate shot to win ACC Player of the Year?
A legitimate shot. I mean, statistically speaking, it's probably not all that high, but yeah. All right. So I'm going to mumble my way through this question. Yes,
Like
I think he
15
does.
to 1?
I would take those odds. Yes, I would. Fairly quickly, actually.
Okay. Interesting. I'm always wary of like assuming that one excellent game is the new level. We got to see him sustain this. Other people will attack him in different ways. And I'm not convinced he's an NFL guy right now, but I think you're right. Like if he can play like this all the time, then yes, clearly, like that was a different level of Jordan Travis than we have seen prior. So that was really impressive.
Justin asks, on the reverse flea flicker, was the O-line providing solid blocking, or the LSU defense just confused? I love that the Noles had time to execute that play. Thanks for the instant reaction, guys. What a day for the Noles. An incredible day, incredible weekend, Justin. Appreciate your support. Did some of the kind of eye candy there change a little bit of the direction of LSU's defensive line? Yeah, a little bit, but in general, it was really solid blocking. Nice little block by number 4 there after he pitches it back.
Yeah,
to
Pittman
Jordan.
does a nice job picking that up.
Yeah,
and the ball is
Pittman
actually underthrown.
It is a little underthrown, takes a little bit of time for him to get it out of there as well. He was actually throwing into the end zone that I was at. I was at I really loved my seats, actually. I was at a middle level and had time to watch that play out in front of me. And I was very calm in my reaction, I can promise you. But what it did as far as confuse people is if you go back and you look, the middle of LSU's defense runs all over the place. And obviously the corner that he ultimately gets behind and almost gets back on the ball bites on that end around look pretty hard. So, it did serve its purpose to confuse a little bit. But in general, the offensive line, as far as that part of your question, Justin provided a excellent foundation with which to build off of. Just as the great people at Legendary Home Loans have provided a fantastic foundation for the Nolecast with which us to build from, and including my co-host getting 2 loans from them, and I would have gotten one from them if I had bought my house probably about 6 weeks later than I did, as they were shortly thereafter registered in the state of Georgia, as they are now for Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, I believe Alabama. I'm not sure about that. I need to find out the answer to that question. But there is no better people to work with than the team at Legendary Home Loans. I know they're in Tennessee as well. Shannon is the Dalvin Cook of the mortgage game. He's as good as a guy as there is out there. That's not a comparison we take lightly. But Shannon is all that you could ever want to work with and more. So 844 FSU loan, 844 FSU loan. Big shout out to Chad and Shannon as always.
No doubt about it. Jimmy Lee asks, it's hard to watch secondary from a TV screen. How'd they do? I was looking for Marion Cooper at the beginning of the game and didn't see him out there, but then saw him later on. Does he look healthy? I thought the secondary did well in terms of keeping the play in front of them and then coming up, and with the exception of the final drive or the second to last drive for the most part, tackling. They were generally pretty assignment sound. I thought physically they don't look special right now. I think your player development on the interior of your football team right now, linebacker, D-line, O-line, running back, is better than it is at receiver and corner, personally. But there's some youth there. There's some guys who have changed positions around. A team that is a better precision passing team than LSU will have a shot against this secondary if they are in the same form, to use a soccer term there. Look at that, man. I'm using soccer terms. What sort of health are they in? Their level of fitness right now. I don't mean like suck and win fitness. I just mean I don't think Cooper looks 100%, and I don't think, Green is like a special player at this point. A team that is like a rhythm passing team that is accurate and plays together and knows what they're doing offensively, unlike LSU, they'll have a chance to hit guys in stride against the secondary. And so we'll have to see what that looks like. Is that Louisville? Is that Clemson? Probably not. Is that Wake? Maybe. We'll see.
I think this is the first time we've recorded where we acknowledge that Hartman's been cleared, and I think both of us, when we were doing our win projections, had factored him coming back into it.
Yeah.
So he's back. We'll see. You should still beat Wake Forest, but certainly I'd love to play Wake Forest without one of the better offensive players in the conference.
For sure, no doubt about that one. So yeah, Jimmy, we'll have to see how they progress, man. This is a great win. It does not mean you're going to play this level every single game. You'll probably play a little bit better than this at some point this year, and you'll probably play worse than it as well a couple more times. So there will be ups and downs. That's football. Progress is not linear, but the team is moving in the right direction. Lee, do you think FSU is more likely to be 4-0 or 3-1 heading into the Wake Forest game? And what would that mean for the team heading into October with Wake Forest, NC State, and Clemson on deck? All right, well, let's take a look at this question. It's an interesting one here. So, Ingram, who do they play before the Wake Forest game? They play Boston College at home, or they play at Louisville and then Boston College, right?
Yep. Yeah, just statistically speaking, I think you're still more likely to be 3-1. I mean, I need to see, and we're going to get to this in about 8 minutes. The UCF Louisville game is a game that I'll watch as intently as any this weekend. Louisville's the type of program, maybe I'm just grabbing at things here, but literally nothing surprises me from Louisville from a week-to-week perspective. Now, I know that they aren't happy with their coach, and I understand getting boat raced by Syracuse in week 1 isn't a great look, but I think it's dangerous to extrapolate that a team with that quarterback is just going to roll over. Now, look, if they go and get beat this weekend, then you could look at some real quit factor. But if Louisville comes back and beats UCF, 21-31 or something like that, I am going to not put a whole lot of stock in. Obviously, we're going to evaluate it, and we're going to look at the personnel implications of what happened at Syracuse and some of the things that they did that they were successful in. But Louisville's just a little bit of a strange program, man. And I have a hard time evaluating them from week to week sometimes.
No doubt about it. I mean, again, like we just said, it is dangerous to assume that one team will play at a certain level the entire rest of the season, as you just said too. All right, so actual odds on this, I found it in my sheet here. So I've got FSU with about a 6% chance to be 2-2 entering that game. That's really not very likely. Things would have to go very wrong. I have a hard time seeing you beat Boston College if Boston College, if you don't have just some sort of insane offensive injuries. Boston College deep offensive line right now is just a mess. Like we previewed this. One of the reasons I was so high on FSU's chances to beat them is because they did lose all 5 offensive linemen, and you already played really well against their front last year. Now their front is significantly worse. Like, I watched that Rutgers game. Like, I wanted to gouge my eyes out. Ingram, they can't block FSU.
Mm-hmm.
You would have to be very, very injured or really screw that one up. That point spread should be like 17, in tally. Louisville game, I think if you played it tomorrow, FSU would be a small favorite, like, 2. If they beat UCF, FSU will be an underdog in that game, point spread wise. If they get blown out by UCF, I could see FSU being like a 4, maybe a 5-point favorite. Unless somebody's really hurt, they're not going to be laying more than a touchdown in Louisville. So with that said, I have them at about 50% to be 3-1 internet game, and about 44% to be 4-0. So guys, that's really close. Like, it's a toss up. It's part of the reason why the question from Lee there is so good. You'd love to start out 4-0 though. That'd be incredible. Tell you what though, go back 3 weeks ago. If I told you 3-1, you're taking that, right?
Taking it in a heartbeat. Absolutely.
No doubt.
Ben asked, how do you feel about our remaining opponents after week 1, or don't read too far into week 1? He asked specifically about Louisville, Syracuse, NC State, Florida, all had interesting outings. Ben, we're not going to answer your question right now. We're going to answer your question in about 6 minutes when we go through the conference and talk about all of those teams. What I will say.
Did you get muted? Ingram, I think you're muted. Yeah, it looks like you're muted on the screen, like not on the mic. Okay, now you're unmuted. Talk. See what you got.
Yeah? Not muted?
That was
okay.
That was weird. Okay. The last thing I heard you say was what I will say, and then it cut off.
Okay. Huh. Bizarre. What I will say is that Ben says that he met Matt from Matzo in New Orleans. Super nice guy. Went of his way to shake my hand after overhearing and a friend say how big of a Nole fan I was. I will definitely stop by there next time. No, I mean, Matt Thompson's been with us since not even day one. Matt Thompson was with us 3 months before we went over to the Nolecast. He's one of the people that made it possible for us to create the Nolecast. Matt is as interwoven into the experience that is a Florida State athletic supporter as anybody can be. And it doesn't surprise me that he went out of his way to say hello to you. I saw Matt from about 35 yards away from where we were, Bud, and neither of us were able to get any closer to each other. It was just a nice little, hey, man, good to see you. This bar is stupidly packed. Yes. So look forward to seeing him. One place where you won't have a bar stupidly packed is the Great Charlie Park. That's why we recommend that you make reservations there, whether it be for their fantastic grazing brunch that they offer, or if you're just going to go up there on a Friday night, Saturday night, or any night. It's an experience that is not found otherwise in Tallahassee. Again, reservation suggested, particularly for the brunch that they do. But Charlie Park is an exceptional place, and one that Bud and I are always eager to get back to when we're in Tallahassee.
No doubt about it, man. Awesome experience at Charlie Park, and I'll have to hit the brunch up next time I am in Tally for a game weekend. All right, Jeff's question. We already answered this in the last episode. Jeff wanted to know about Bless Harris and Lyles. I'm sure, given that Jeff is a Patreon member, that we will he'll have heard our answer there about that. Sam's question. After watching the Clemson Georgia Tech game, he wants to know about like FSU. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's just kick off our segment about opponent previews and conference look ahead with Sam's question, and then we'll get back into Ben's question, and we'll go into our picks for the weekend.
So, interesting question here. I have to say, Sam, that I thought similar until you saw who their backup quarterback was and how he looked. But Sam said, after watching the Clemson Georgia Tech game, how do you guys feel about Florida State catching up to Clemson as a program? Oddly enough, they're starting to remind me a lot of the early mid-2000s Florida State team, where there's still a lot of talent on the roster, and they'll continue to be highly ranked for the foreseeable future. But the loss of key coordinators, poor in-game coaching, holes developing at certain positions, and overall stubbornness to change had me thinking that the game may be starting to pass by Dabo. Am I too eager in saying that Clemson is fading as a elite national power in the sport? Well, I would say that you're not too eager because that was the general consensus from Clemson fans until about 8 minutes left in that game. I mean, it's a frustrating time for them right now. Now, obviously, the kid from Austin, Cade, how do I pronounce his last name again, bud? I'm sorry. I lean on you in pronunciations
Cade
all the
Klubnik?
time, but Klubnik, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kid looks legit. He's a freshman, really mobile, smart player, but Clemson hired two or promoted two coordinators. There's a lot of questions there. Clemson is a team that you need a bit better sample size for and to get a feel exactly for what they're doing. I'm not sure the game's passed Dabo by. I just think Dabo is exceptionally stubborn, as you referenced there, and loves kind of keeping it within the family. And he did that with his coordinator hires, and I think he's going to regret that long term.
Yeah, I mean, I fired off some tweets during that game. Like Clemson's entire offensive coaching staff has only 12 years of FBS coaching experience. That's a 5-man staff, 12 years. They have under 3 years of FBS coaching. I'm not talking about like they don't have at least 3 years at Bama or something like that, okay? They only have 7 years at the Power 5 level combined on their 5 guys on their offensive staff. None of those are outside Clemson. Every year of experience for this Clemson coaching staff at the Power 5 level has come wearing a Clemson Tigers polo. The head coach is not a play caller, right? He's a rah, vibes, recruiting, great CEO type guy, And for him, like that's, that is interesting, right? How do they make adjustments? What do they do? What happens if opponents seem to know what you're doing play wise? I don't know, man. Like there's some real questions there. As far as like who in that room can say, hey, when I was at this other place, we did this. Now, some of these guys have been high school coaches before, and I respect my high school coaches. Got a lot of them out there, but it's not 100% the same. And you'd like to have some more experience in that. I think that they have an over dedication to from promoting from within. And yeah, man, it's a weird concept. Like, what other staff in the country at the P5 has nobody on the offensive staff who has any P5 experience at any other program as a coach? That's got to be, for that to happen in like a program we consider like a top 5 program, it's pretty wild.
It is wild. And the stat that you listed about the years that staff is crazy. Now, we're probably not going to learn a whole lot about Clemson this weekend. They're playing the fighting Purple Paladins of Furman. Where are they at Louisiana, or not at Louisiana Tech? They play Louisiana Tech the week after. So it's going to be a little bit of a while for us to get a real feel for this, absent just, DJU and the offense looking absolutely stagnant as it did at times against Georgia Tech. But yeah, Clemson, we'll keep our eye on it. I think if you want to spin a positive, is that Furman and Louisiana Tech may give that offense a good enough of a look that where Dabo is pretty slow to make a quarterback change. And at that point, I think that'd probably be a good thing for Florida State. I'm not calling the Cade kid Deshaun Watson by any means, but this somewhat reminds me of Dabo keeping Deshaun Watson on the bench for a year, just more or less because he wanted to prove a point. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Clemson's got good linebackers, incredible defensive line. I agree, Sam, that there's areas on that team that are as talented as anybody in the country. But there's also starting to be areas, most notably the offensive line, where you're like, yeah, that's not good enough. And that's not good enough at all for a program that we think of as one of the 5 best in the country.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like an elite, coaching staff on the offensive side of the ball. But they are still recruiting pretty damn well. And like you said, quarterback can cover up a lot of that. And there's no rule that says Dabo has to keep this coaching staff or his approach to the portal forever. So I think rumors of their demise might be a little premature. Okay, let's go ahead and take Ben's question now as part of our Prize Picks segment. You guys may have noticed that we've added a new sponsor in Prize Picks. Prize Picks is some really fun daily fantasy. We absolutely love these guys. And you can get a deposit match bonus right now. First-time depositors up to $100, 100% deposit match when you use that promo code Nolecast. We'll also have the link in the show description if you want to use our smart link there. It's really fun. You just take and you pick a couple overs or unders or more or less rather for some players, and you can combine them if you want. Last week we went big and almost hit in New Orleans. So we went for a 10x combo, and tonight we have a couple picks that we like as well. So we're going to do this, and we're going to use this basically as a vehicle to discuss some of FSU's upcoming opponents because, of course, the Noles have a bye week right now, which is, not a lot to pick from the Noles bye week. Ingram, you sent over a couple to me, I believe. Why don't we go ahead and lead this off and just go FSU doesn't actually play North Carolina this year. So let's just acknowledge that North Carolina has Drake May, and Drake May's passing number here is 299. And I think we agree that over is probably the shot here, considering.
I like it. I like it here. I also like it for the psychological reason that I think they're going to try to beat Georgia State convincingly after having to beat App 62-61 or whatever the hell that game was last weekend. I mean, that's crazy. I like this quarterback a good bit. This is not a direct Florida State opponent, but is one of the better teams in the Coastal. And it was one of the things that stood out on my sheet here when I reviewed some of the options for the weekend.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, man. North Carolina's defense is horrendous. Like, those guys just don't look coached at all. And if I'm Jay Bateman, who was their DC and he's now Florida's linebackers coach, I'm just sitting here laughing. Like, yeah, guys, I was really the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You guys are a year older and more mature and return almost everybody, and you're worse. You're worse than you were with me. They're just horrendously coached. I mean, App State lost their top 3 receivers off last year's team, and they're running wide open against North Carolina. So that should be an entertaining game. On the other side, Georgia State, they were like 8 of 29 passing against South Carolina. So this is sort of the resistible force against the movable object. Like, we shall see how this works. All right, another one that you like here is Jeff Sims. This is actually a team on FSU's schedule. They do play Georgia Tech. You watched a lot of that game on Monday night. We're going over on Jeff Sims, 175.5.
Yeah, 175.5. This is one of the few games that Georgia Tech can win this year. I think internally they're trying to spin, and it was a much closer game than the score looked like, but they're trying to spin that the Monday night was a positive sign. And I have to say there's and we'll get way more into this when Florida State plays Georgia Tech, but there are throws that Jeff Sims make that you're like, I don't think that kid can play quarterback for you at all. Like, what are you doing? And then he'll respond with 3 incredible throws. I think he's getting good coaching. I think they're developing him okay. I don't want to say, fantastically well, but 176 yards against one of the only times that Georgia Tech's going to be able to feel good about itself this year. I think that's a good play. I like it.
I agree with you on that. I thought Jeff played well considering just the talent around him, and I'm not really sure that I don't love the offensive coaching at Georgia Tech. I don't think that staff's going to last very long there, but I mean, yeah, I think he can get to 200 yards passing as long as his receivers actually catch the football a little bit. Another one that we love here is Tom Brady, over half a yard passing. That's right. Ben and his team at Prize Picks have thrown in a free square essentially this week. Not even really sure if we're allowed to call it a free square, but as long as Tom Brady eclipses more than half a yard passing, that is definitely one that we like a lot. $25 max on that one, obviously. Big fan of Tom Brady over 1/2 yard passing as he makes his debut against the Cowboys this weekend. All right, another one this is actually not a Prize Picks one, but we will talk about Louisville and Syracuse. Are we downgrading Louisville or upgrading Syracuse more?
Again, I'm going to need more on Louisville in general to make an observation there. I will give Syracuse their credit, though. I was impressed with what they did. They very much had a game plan, went out and executed the hell out of it. I, you know, I'll need to see it for more than 1 week, but I give credit to Syracuse and that coaching staff, and they had time to scheme it up. Week ones are always interesting because you're in a way like you're never as prepared, and you're also never you're never as prepared as you're going to be. But you also have a level and an opportunity to prepare for an opponent at a level that you don't the rest of the season. So you can put in a game plan, and you can put a 6 week install on that. Now that'd be a little much, but they came out, whatever they did over the summer, uh, it was good, and it was really good and really impressive, and performed at a level that not many people thought was possible.
I agree with you on that. I mean, the Syracuse offensively looked really good. They're going to be a team that you have to monitor offensive line health wise because they are so thin there at that spot. Defensively, I really thought Louisville would push them around because they are so tiny up front. I mean, their heaviest guy is listed at 270 on the D line, but they were able to use a lot of movement and confuse the heck out of Louisville. Louisville just looked discombobulated from the start, man. I mean, they looked confused. They took really dumb penalties. I mean, they just looked poor. If I'm curious to see how they look on Friday night against UCF, which by the way, I do have a prize picks selection of my own for Friday night. If you're interested, I am going with a guy that we know, John Rice Plumley, for under 247.5 passing yards. I think his legs will feature prominently this week and maybe not hit that 250 passing yard mark. And so I'm going to go under there as we watch Louisville. NC State, I don't have a pick on them this weekend for prize picks. I just hate how their offense is coached, man. I think Devin Leary is probably a really good player. And they just do stuff that doesn't make sense to me. I've said this for a couple of years now. I think that they probably underachieve their talent on offense and maybe overachieve it on defense on a pretty consistent basis due to coaching and player dev. And that's my take on NC State. That's still going to be a very tough game though in Raleigh. Like I still have NC State favored in that one. They got down to the goal line, I think, twice and didn't score. So maybe we have a different narrative if they just have kind of normal goal line performance and punch one in. That game's not nearly as close at ECU. Florida. Do we have a prize pick on Florida this weekend? I don't think so, right? No.
I don't have anything that jumped out at me. I'll take a look at what the offerings are real quickly.
Anthony Richardson looked really good, I thought. He's a stud talent. How ready would he be was the question, and we'll see that he actually looked pretty ready. I thought Florida's coaching staff did a nice job to build the game plan around him. They used some quarter roll stuff. They used some play action, some kind of modified boot stuff. He had a 75-yard touchdown run. He was excellent in the red zone. Florida did not get a lot of pass rush on Utah, which could be a concern down the line when they play like a Tennessee or a Georgia or FSU potentially. Again, we're monitoring Florida's defensive line starters because, like Syracuse's offensive line, the depth there is just not there. They're listing Desmond Watson at 439 pounds. All right. I saw you look up. Yeah, that is not a typo. Or I did not misspeak. That's not a guy who can play more than 20 snaps in a game. Just not.
I don't know that I play this, but they do have a ton of options with Anthony Richardson. I get it. One of which is a fantasy score of 30.5. I think that might be a little bit rich. Just personally, again, this isn't one of my suggested picks, but just in a quick review, there's an awful lot to make of Florida, and Anthony Richardson's as well represented as anybody that I've seen on there. A couple interesting, like 2.5 touchdowns rushing and throwing combined, but 30.5 maybe a little bit of a rich score for me against a Mark Stoops defense.
I think that's fair. I watched that Miami Ohio Kentucky game, by the way, and dude, like Kentucky's got real problems on offense. I think Florida beats them soundly.
Okay.
But I think it's more because I think Florida's defense is going to give them some issues. My question here, like if you're going to hit those fantasy points for Richardson, there's two things you got to think about. What pace is Florida going to play at? Are they actually going to play fast, or are they going to continue to play kind of slow? And B, is it Richardson scoring with his legs or throwing in the red zone, right? Or does he hand it off? Maybe they get some running back touchdowns. Those will probably be the deciding factors for him, but pace is going to be very important. So if you figure out the pace, you probably cash, or if you don't figure it out, you probably don't on that AR-15 one, which I guess we're not supposed to call him that anymore, but whatever.
You also got a 0.5 touchdown pick available, or 0.5 interception pick on that. I might take the over there. I could certainly see that against the Stoops defense as well. So, all right, where do we go from here, bud? Do you want to talk about
Boston College with our Zay Flowers pick?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of the ones that we did put on our sheet, or at least I had on mine. Zay Flowers projected fantasy score of 17.5. I think he got 13 touches last week, 2 or 3 carries, 10 receptions, a guy that they try to feature in offense as much as they can, a guy that didn't transfer despite being pursued heavily by other teams throughout the summer, and a guy that, look, when you keep a kid, sometimes you need to make that a priority and try to get him as involved as much as you can. I like this pick here. I think you might have a little bit of value on Flowers that you might not find later on in the season.
No doubt. All right, I'm with you on that one. I think that's it for our prize picks this week. So to review, we like Plumlee under, and we also like. By the way, the reception for prize picks from our audience has been exceptional, according to Ben. We like our Drake May more, Jeff Sims more, Tom Brady obviously more, Zay Flowers more. And did we talk about our other NFL one?
No, but if you want one just for the feels, and also I think is smart, Jameis Winston, 230.5 passing yards against one of the most woeful defenses in the NFL, which is the Atlanta Falcons. You get a healthy Jameis against one of the worst defenses around. I love it. I obviously, prize picks and me fully separating my emotions from picks. It's not something I've mastered so far. But no, I like this one if you're just looking for a little bit more of an NFL representation on your pick card.
Awesome, man. All right. Well, I'm down, and I think, is that all the teams that we need to discuss as far as features here? We hit Louisville.
I think
we hit Boston College. Wake, I think we'll learn a lot about. We hit NC State. We hit Georgia Tech. We hit Florida. I don't know anything about Louisiana yet. I know that some people, like some pro groups betting wise, went against them early this week with Eastern Michigan. So we'll see how that works out for them. I'm not on that. I think that's it, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's we'll see. And we'll watch the Miami USM game.
Miami.
Figure out if there's a whole lot for us to take away from there. I personally don't think there will be.
Under in that, I think, by the way. Like, it's going to be extremely hot. Miami has A&M on deck.
Yeah, I was going to say, we'll find out all we need about Miami next week. But
pretty good chance Ty Keys, the quarterback for Southern Miss, does not play because he they haven't said what the injury was, but deducing here, he got knocked out on a really, really bad, serious targeting call and did not return to the game. So I'm like, that looks to me like concussion protocol, given it was head-to-head shot. Hope he's okay, but yeah, I think there's a decent chance he doesn't play. And I may look like a dummy come Friday because this video won't be out until then. So awesome.
One person that'll never let you look like a dummy is the great Matt Lewis. CongruityHR.com is the website. We're fond of saying how fortunate we are to work with him, and that's because it's the absolute truth. Matt Lewis, good as there is out there, whether it be payroll, HR, anything else. As always, if you want a third-party introduction, please reach out to me. Had some remarkable response on this, even within the last month or so. So all I can tell you is that you'll be in good hands and you'll be with somebody that takes your business exceptionally seriously. Matt Lewis, CongruityHR.com. Thanks so much for your support, Matt. and making the Nolecast possible. I don't know that I have anything else on my pick sheet or anything else, bud. Unless you've got something else, that will probably be it for tonight's Nolecast.
All right, buddy. We will talk again. All right, so we'll do a preview show for Louisville.
Get a chance to talk to our one specified preview guest that we have every year.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah. We don't do a lot of guests on the show. We will get Mark Ennis on, fairly certain. We'll probably drop that on a Wednesday, I would think. Like maybe like a Wednesday afternoon type show there, if I had to guess, depending on Mark's availability, since it is a Friday game.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we'll do like a Sunday or Monday, like very quick review of what we learned this weekend from other teams. Who knows? Or maybe a Monday night watch along. We'll just transform this into an NFL show. Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I'll have a hard time with you there, but
All right.
as always, enjoyed it, folks. Thank you. We'll talk to you soon. Look forward to the weekend. Till then.